So the house is in this general area. This is overgrown by trees now, but when it burned down, I didn't know until the bus came down the road after school and dropped us off. I remembered seeing that there was activity down the road at my house, you know, a fire truck, cops, whatever. But just pulling up the shell of your childhood house, it hit you. It's a lot of stuff to go through your head when everything you know is suddenly gone. So my great-grandfather lives on the same country block, but we live on this long side and he lives around the corner on the short side. And me and my siblings, my mother and my father go and live with him for a little while. I mean, it was kind of cramped, but that way we had nowhere else to go. My parents were looking for some place to live, and until then, we had to stay there. Well, the next thing I remember is I'm sitting in the living room watching TV or playing video games. My mother's all frantic about something, and I asked her to do something for me, and she said, I ain't got time for that right now. Your dad's been missing for 5 days. And that was my first sign that something was going on. Well, fast forward a bit, and I'm at school, and the teacher comes and gets us, and we get called to the office, me and my siblings. And we were going home early, and I was all excited. I was like, cool, I hate school. And the first weird thing was my aunt and uncle came to pick us up. It was odd, but I didn't think much of it. But I noticed the atmosphere in the car ride, like my aunt and uncle, they didn't say anything. They had these real sullen looks on their face, just staring out the window, that sort of thing. And we're not going to our house in town. They're taking us to my great-grandfather's house out in the country. So when we get up in the drive, my grandfather has this sliding glass door leading right into like the kitchen, dining room area. And we pull up in the drive, and I can see my mother at the table, and I could tell by her body language that something's up. So we get in there, and through tears and sobs, my mother tells me that my father is dead. That hit me like a ton of bricks. I was stunned at first with no reaction. It actually took me a minute to comprehend what was going on. And I remember staring at her for a few seconds, maybe a minute, and then just breaking down and running into my grandfather's room and crying myself. So I remember my sister finally breaking the news to me one morning before school that my dad had actually committed suicide. I thought that he had died somehow, maybe somebody killed him. I mean, I was young, I probably hadn't grasped the concept of suicide yet. And from what I put together, this general area is probably where my mom found him. That's how we found out. My mom came out here and she found the vehicle and followed a trail of blood and found him. And I'm sure that had to be rough on her. I think that was where something in my head kind of got twisted, because later in life I would develop what's stress-induced seizure disorder. And like, I'm no doctor, but I think that was at such a young age, the house burning down and my father dying in such a short period is what kind of triggered it. Okay, so I probably got held back in about 6th grade, and I started falling in with these guys. And as we got older, probably into about 15, 16, we started experimenting with you know, a little bit of weed or some alcohol. And that quickly became our identity. We were those kids in school. We were the black sheep, or the, I guess, outcast kids in school. And, you know, at that point, that was fine. I was fine with that. You know, I had some guys that I thought were friends. The stresses of drug life in the future would kind of prove that not true. But, well, at probably 17, 18, that's when things got a little more intense. I developed this painkiller addiction. You know, doing drugs went from something, you know, a little bit of weed here and there to have fun, to something that you're becoming all about. That's all you want to do. Especially when I had the painkiller addiction. That'll hook you stronger than weed will. I don't remember the very first time, but I do know that you start smoking weed and it introduces you to that environment per se, that you might only be smoking weed, but the guy you get the weed from, or his buddy that's there also, they don't. So through high school, the biggest drug I was addicted to was probably painkillers. I think that was more like junior, senior year. I was definitely addicted to painkillers. And by the time I graduated high school, I had tried meth for the first time. But I had no idea where to get it. It was just something that somebody had at one point, and I tried it a few times. And unfortunately, I really enjoyed it. So there for a few years, I was just addicted to, especially coming out of high school, I was addicted to painkillers. I still smoked a lot of weed. And that was just when Spice was hitting the scene, the streets. And I tried Spice, and I got real addicted to Spice. Spice had a grip on me unlike anything, and unlike the painkillers, unlike meth. That really had a grip on me. I'd done stuff. I'd stolen from people and to get Spice more than I did to get meth. Age about 2021 is when I started to do meth consistently. At first I would just roll what's called a bubble. It's when you smoke meth. And it became what I spent all my time and my energy, my resources trying to get. It was, I'd wake up in the morning and how am I going to get my fix? What am I going to do to be able to afford to get the money? Who am I going to steal from? How am I going to cheat somebody? And looking back on it, that is something that I am very ashamed of, because that's not who I am personally. That's the drug. It gets a hold of you in ways that you don't even realize at the time. Looking back on it, you can see it. But at the time, you are just interested in getting that next fix. I like to think it was, I know it was God kicking me in the rear, telling me that this isn't who I am. I'm a child of Him, and I meant for better.